Okay.
Go.
Lovely. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to a special episode of Continuous Discussions, the online forum where we talk about all things Agile, DevOps, and continuous delivery. I'm Sam Fell.
And I'm Anders Wallgren, and today is a very special episode. We're doing a preview of the All-Day DevOps Conference today. The second annual All-Day DevOps Conference is happening on October 24th this year, 2017. It's the largest online DevOps event featuring 24 hours of live online free talks. So join us for a special preview of the upcoming conference featuring some of the organizers and speakers. Happening now.
All right, and now we're back, and here we are. So let's talk to the first. Let me introduce the founder, co-founder, of All Day DevOps. Derek, introduce yourself. Welcome to the program. I'm surprised we haven't had you on earlier, but welcome. Unmute yourself, potentially.
Thanks, Sam. Yep, it's awesome to be here. I'm very excited about the program today and to talk about all-day DevOps, but more so what it's going to bring to everyone watching here and the value that we're building with the entire community. So as you said, I'm one of the co-founders of All-Day DevOps. We founded the conference last year. And I also work at Sonatype as our VP and DevOps advocate here. Although we kind of keep a divide between what Sonatype does and what All Day DevOps does, it's really a community-built conference that we're excited to bring to everyone.
And we're awful excited to have you here as well. And we're very excited as an organization to be supporting All Day DevOps as well. Mark Miller, the person with all the ideas, I understand. Introduce yourself.
Thank you, Sam. As Derek said, the all-day DevOps concept is really a community effort. Derek and I happen to be the face of it because we started running with the idea. But as of now, we have over 200 organizations participating as part of the community, which to me is unfathomable, especially since this is just our second event. So we're happy to be here today. Looking forward to the next half hour so we can tell you more about it. And I want to hear what Andy Mann has to say too, because Andy's been along for the ride too.
Absolutely. So Andy, longtime C9D9 participant, happy to see that you're such an integral part of All Day DevOps. Welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm not sure how integral I am. Derek and Mark are really the workers here. I turn up, I help. I was part of the moderation last year, so a little bit behind the scenes, helping to organize the day as it went on, getting to chat with a lot of the participants, with a lot of the speakers. It's just turned into such an amazing event. I'm so proud to even be involved with it.
Fantastic. Now, if you're listening in and you'd like to ask a question or you have something to add, use the C9D9 or the All Day DevOps tag on Twitter, and we'll take a look at it. But for right now, let's go ahead and jump in. I want to learn more of this All Day DevOps thing. Let's just pretend I've never heard about it. Derek or Mark, why don't one of you walk us through sort of what it is and how you got there?
Yeah, I'm happy to start off. So, Mark and I came up with this concept last year, and it really stemmed from Mark and I traveling all over the place within the DevOps community, going to different conferences, speaking at different conferences out there, and we get to meet a lot of similar people like yourself at those conferences, meet the other speakers, get to see them speak. But at the same time, we're showing up to all these different cities around the world and meeting people. There was a gentleman from Lloyd's of London who I met just in June when we were at DevOps Enterprise Summit. And he said, yeah, I'm here. That's an awesome conference, but I'm one person from Lloyd's of London. There are 300 other people from Lloyd's of London in the DevOps practice that can't go to that conference. And part of it is just you can't send your whole team somewhere on a plane, hotel rooms, whatever it might be, to go to those conferences. And so we thought we could take a lot of the momentum in the DevOps community and a lot of the speakers that we had met along the way, and deliver that opportunity for people to learn about DevOps all around the world, and to do so for free. There's a lot of terrific practitioners out there with great experience, and we wanted to find a way to do something online to have practitioners come and talk about what they're doing, and offer an ability to interact in that conference environment that people just didn't want to see a broadcast. They actually said, you know, when I go to a live conference like DevOps Enterprise Summit or Jenkins World or anything, I want the ability to ask questions and learn from those people. So not only do we live broadcast the conference, but we also do live Q&A on Slack, and that allows folks to interact. And you know, I really have to give Mark credit for taking this idea that we had to do an online conference and blowing it up out of proportion, because Mark is the guy that came and said, you know, I love this idea, but let me, you know, if we're going to pull this off, let's just not pull off a couple of sessions. He said, we're going to run for 15 hours across 15 time zones and have 57 sessions across 3 tracks. And then, my gosh, it became this big concept of, it's not just, hey, show up and hear one particular vendor talk about their products. It's come up and listen to practitioners. We could go and access everyone in North America and Europe in the time zones we were running last year. And we had a phenomenal turnout. So 13,500 people registered in the first year. So we knew we were on to something good. And as crazy as I might be, I'm the guy that suggested this year we should run for 24 hours so that we can include all of the Asia Pac region in this learning experience that we've created. And then Mark did the calculations to say, you know, we're going to need 100 speakers across 24 hours in order to do that. So it's an exciting part of kind of building an opportunity for people to really learn about DevOps that might, you know, be in countries that don't have conferences yet. We have 99 countries represented, or they're just part of that team that can't get approval to travel, or you know, they can send one person but can't send the whole team. So we've really seen a lot of organizations send their entire teams. Capital One, for example, sent 325 people last year. So you can't do that with any other conference unless you're doing it online and free.
Right.
Derek, I'll jump in too to kind of talk historically about what happened. Sam, keep an eye on my video. If it gets to be too much, I'll shut it down as far as bandwidth goes.
Okay.
But one of the things that we would like to encourage people to do is, Derek and I aren't magicians here. What we did, we actually did in 90 days. From concept to execution last year was 90 days. So I'm thinking that I would like, and Derek would like, to encourage the community to take this as a springboard to say, you can do local events like this. There is nothing to stop you from doing local events like this. As an example, when we were in London talking about this at first, Derek and I, we just walked in and met Mark Cluett. You probably know Mark from the London DevOps group. You know, we walked in, Mark was having a group meeting that night, and we said, you know, would you help support all-day DevOps? You know, we weren't even finished with the drawing board yet. And he immediately said, absolutely, we're in, count on us. Jack Moore was part of that discussion. So my point is, this is a community event. Use it as an example of what you can do locally, and we'll do whatever we can to support you.
It is pretty amazing to see sort of the growth in the folks who are interested in this, just getting the word out. I think people are very interested in the learning, obviously, the hallway track, if you will, being able to ask questions as part of these conferences. Going and watching things that are canned videos is interesting, but you can't engage with the speakers, you can't learn from them. So hats off to you guys for being able to make this something that's more of an exchange of ideas as opposed to a megaphone. And I love the fact that it's no vendor pitches, right? This is not a place to come and shill your product or sell your wares. It's really a place to help educate people who are trying to get through that process. Tell me a little bit about what you're seeing this year as far as the growth of folks who are trying to get on into the conference versus last year, or how's that going?
Sam, let me jump in first. Anders, it looks like you had a question there or a comment you wanted to make. I saw your microphone come on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's interesting because it is kind of, growing across the world, and I'm actually going to be in Korea next week doing a couple of seminars on DevOps. So just wanted to say I'll make sure to pitch the conference and see if we can get some interest for it there.
Great.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. One of the things that we're seeing too is the uptake in Southeast Asia, like you said, Korea. I was in Singapore 3 weeks ago, and there's an entire DevOps culture there. Derek, you want to take it from there and talk about the spread of the word?
Yeah, I think kind of going back to the conversations Mark mentioned earlier in London, that we had with Jack Moore and the other organizers of DevOps London. There was a conversation that happened when we look back. It was October 4th last year. We were about 6 weeks before the conference. We had 300 people registered for the conference. And our initial goal for the conference was having 1,000 people register. We just thought, hey, if we're going to do this for the first time, 1,000 seems like a big enough number. We had no idea 13,000 were going to show up. But the interesting thing that Mark said over lunch that day was, would we be doing anything differently if we wanted 15,000 people to show up? And my reaction to that was, we're going to need to know a lot of people that know a lot of people. And that really, then we met with the DevOps London guys right after that, and they said, hey, we know 4,000 or 5,000 people in the London community that are interested in DevOps. And that kind of sparked the interest of, how do we get more people involved in the community? We know the guys that run the Java meetup group in Atlanta. We know the guys that run Agile Orlando. We know the guys that run Cloud Austin. And we invited them and others from the community to say, hey, we're doing this big online free conference. Could you help us spread the word? As Mark said, we have over 200, I think it's getting close to 250 community supporters around the world that just have, their continuous delivery meetups, cloud meetups, DevOps meetups, Docker and Kubernetes groups around the world, and a host of other organizations that say, this is really cool education for my members, and I want to help spread the word. So, we really put an emphasis on last year, what was in some respects kind of a trial run, to say this year, we really want to involve everyone in helping to spread the word. And then, as Mark said, you see all of these different groups across Asia, across India, across Europe and South America that are really getting involved in helping us to spread the word about the conference. And while Mark and I, the other important thing I think to emphasize here is, while Mark and I both work at Sonatype and we're gainfully employed there, it's not a Sonatype conference. So the organizing committee last year, the core people that were running it, there were 6 or 8 of us. Andy Mann from Splunk, Shannon Leach from Intuit, Chris Corriere from AutoTrader. We had James Wickett from Signal Sciences. We had Karthik from Oracle. And Ernest from Alien Vault. Like, all of these guys were the early guys that came in and said, yeah, I'll take a chance on this. This sounds like fun. Like, you can involve me. It wasn't us from it was us that thought of the idea, but it really grew up in the community. So that was, an exciting part of how the conference has developed.
I would like to hear from Andy's point of view. Andy, when we first approached you and you saw what was going on, why did you jump in?
It was the community aspect of it, Mark. I mean, and understanding that everyone in the world wants to know, more about DevOps. And I know a few people in DevOps, and I knew some good people whose stories had never been told. And the sort of people who can't necessarily fly 7 hours and go and stand on stage at a conference. they're a director of IT, or a practitioner in operations, a practitioner in development, maybe in security as well, because I know there's a great DevSecOps track as well. And these people's stories had never really been told, and they're never going to get permission to go and fly for a full-day conference to tell their story, but they were stories worth telling. And so I just love the idea I also love the idea of being able to help out in a conference where I didn't have to get on a plane and fly somewhere for a change. But to be able to get the community engagement, to be able to get all of these other people who had never told their stories, and to be able to memorialize that, record it, being able to get to this content after the event, being able, and I really loved the community aspect of having that chat. I mean, you mentioned being able to do Q&A, but it wasn't just Q&A. There's a whole sort of hallway setup that we use in Slack, so that when you're finished speaking, you can just hang out in the hallway and people come in and they chat and we ask questions, we talk about stuff. And again, that engagement really made a difference. And so for me, it was really just a part of giving back to the community, and helping some of the cool people that I've met tell their stories.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Derek.
I think a couple of points there. I mean, we mentioned this hallway conversation. There were 10,000 conversations on Slack last year during the conference. So the amount of, if you're coming in thinking, yeah, I've heard like people ask a couple of questions at the end of a webinar, like maybe it's like that. It was literally like nonstop Q&A. That one, we had speakers I know that presented at 5 a.m. Eastern time. They were on part of the early agenda. They were still on at 5 p.m. Eastern time answering questions.
Derek, you got to give a call out to Katie Hiller, though, right? I mean, she was Slack.
We had Katie Hiller on our team, was kind of managing the Slack channel to, one, make sure that if people had questions, they were getting answered. And also if people were trying to promote their services, like, hey, I'm a DevOps consultancy in the Philippines and come and use our services, that we booted those people from the channel and so forth. She was on for 17 hours straight on Slack. But also people like Shannon Leitz, who ran the security track, when we were supposed to take breaks every 4 hours in how we were pulling off the conference, and Andy and I shifted each 4 hours on our track, and Shannon was like, I'm having so much fun running this track and participating with people in Slack, and they were helping me learn things, and I've met so many new people. You're not pulling me away from this track. And
Derek, do you remember she had a broken ankle? She had a broken ankle propped up on the desk.
Well, that's a part of the reason why she didn't leave her post, is she was also handicapped.
You hobbled her before the thing. That's a good idea.
But
and I think that's a great idea too, to be able to have a little bit more of an extended Q&A, because when you're at a real conference, you're always kind of conscious of getting shooed out of the room for the next. The nice thing about virtual rooms is you kind of don't have to. So
the number of people that stuck around was amazing.
Yeah.
Another shout out I will give to Andy. I think Andy is the one that pulled in Samit. Great session last year, and when we were actually just referencing the dinner, one of the dinners we had in London back in June, Samit was sitting next to me and he said, the thing that I think this conference really needs is a cultural transformations track. That's just a really, it's a big need in DevOps, and a lot of people are challenged by it. And I thought, that's a really great idea. Do you want to run that track? and he said, sure. And that's how a lot of things with DevOps, with all-day DevOps, have actually happened. That someone said, what would be cool is if we had this. And just like we did the DevOps and government track this year, someone said, we really need that. And we're like, okay, do you want to help run it? And we have someone from the community come in and say, yeah, I want to take part in that. So it's really cool to see that extension of the community.
And Sumit was one of the people I was talking about whose story had not really been told, and all of this just literally it came out of, I was over in London, and I knew Sumit from online and chatting about stuff. And we sat down and we talked about our differing ideas on the culture of DevOps and these, and he's got a lot of passion, he's got a lot of stories, and he's got a lot of understanding. And to have him be able to come on last year as a presenter and share his story. And then see him blossom into someone creating and running a whole track for the thing. I mean, this is where this sort of event, this event really is so rewarding for me personally to see guys like Sumit be able to really get into his element and shine outside of the office space where he spends all of his time.
And share all the great information that he has with all these people. So, Andy, you were also involved as sort of a hall monitor of sorts last year. Is that accurate? What does that entail?
That's probably a good way to describe it. I mean, there's a bunch of technology behind the scenes. We're using the Google Hangouts and stuff. But one of the tricks there is that you've got to have a session open all the time. So I got up at I stayed up until about 2 a.m. Mountain Time to start a backup session. Just so there was something running, so I wouldn't close out the room. And this is about my level of technical involvement in the whole process. Staying up until 2 o'clock in the morning and clicking a button. But helping people understand when their time was on, and getting them into the room, and helping to track them down, and having a chat with them afterwards, and doing the Q&A and this sort of stuff. I mean, really getting involved with every session. Like I said, I didn't organize the way that Derek and Mark did, but I turned up on the day and helped moderate and helped shepherd people around and helped have conversations in the Slack channels and stuff. And I learned a bunch of stuff. I've gone back and watched a whole bunch of the presentations in the other tracks that I wasn't in at the time. And as audience, I've really enjoyed the all day DevOps.
Yeah,
the ops in a microcosm there, staying up till 2 a.m. to push a button.
It's also right.
Yeah, exactly. And so I guess the point that I was going to make is someone from the office of the CTO at a humongous company, Splunk, is taking his own personal time, and Mark and Derek, obviously, and so many other people are taking their own personal time to make this event happen. I think that, to me, is one of the most telling things about the deep-rooted community that is being built in all-day DevOps and DevOps in general. And I think that that's just a very special thing. And so hats off to the team that's making it happen. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Do you guys want to talk a little bit about some of the things that people might see this year?
Oh, no, I don't want to talk about that.
Some of the talks or the tracks. What you've mentioned a DevSecOps track. What are some of the other tracks that are going to be there, and who are some of the folks that you're excited to hear from? I'm sure you're excited to hear from all of them, but you can't hear from all of them at once. So
I think so. I'll just say we have 6 tracks running this year. We have the continuous delivery, continuous everything track is back again this year, as is the DevSecOps track, and then modern infrastructure, which is everything from Docker, Kubernetes, microservices, you name it. As part of that track. Then this year we've added cultural transformations, which I just mentioned. Sumit is running that track with a number of other people from the community that are helping him with that. We also have a DevOps in government track. Every time I meet someone in the government, DevOps is just a little different there. The legacy systems, the processes that they have to go through, the regulation that they sometimes have to deal with. So we've set up a unique track for that. And then we have something special called the Tech Crawl track, which we are building from scratch this year, and should be a really exciting. I'll just say the kind of quick way to summarize it is MTV Cribs for DevOps. We are going to go in and get live tours of some DevOps practices on site, where people are giving us kind of that insider's tour. It's not a presentations track like most typical conferences, but stems out of I had a number of visits to different organizations, American Airlines, Pivotal, Fannie Mae, PayPal that, I was in and having conversations with them on other things, but the part of seeing their environment, seeing their workspace, seeing how they organize themselves. When I was at Fannie Mae, as an example, we were shooting a video with them that day, but one of the executives we were working with had to meet with their site architect. And they have, if you see their office space, it's like a lot of office spaces, lots of cubicles everywhere. And in fact, they're high-walled cubicles. So even if you're standing up, you can't really see the person next to you. And the site architect was working with the executive to actually redesign their workspace. And now they're organized into these different squads in an open workspace. And each squad has a different function and interacts with each other in a different way. Well, you can't see that unless you go and visit those organizations. And I've always heard of the Netflixes, the Netflix and PayPals and everyone else and Amazons that are doing these amazing DevOps things, but I can't just walk into their offices and see that. So we're setting up the tech crawl track to show you just that. Like, give us a tour of your office, tell us how you're organized and who's doing what, and kind of just give us a sense of how things go on, because we won't be able to travel to your location. So that's one of the cool things that I'm excited about in this year's conference that we're trying to pull off. And if you attend that track, you'll see how well we do.
That's such an awesome idea. Just makes it so grounded.
I think everyone that I talked to said that's a cool idea. I'd love to see that. So we're going to see if the idea actually meshes with could we deliver it live on the 24th.
You need to have some funky music in the background.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's going to work. That's it.
Sam, I got a couple things for you too, that this is a new announcement that we're doing just here for you to start it off. The keynotes that are going to be this year. I don't know if you know Robert Scoble, the Scobleizer. He is going to be one of our keynotes, which for me is very exciting. I've known Robert. I met him at a media conference years ago.
Very exciting. He's a great guy to have on the track. And he actually did with the Area 53, I think it was. He did something very similar to that track that you were just talking about, Area 43. Thank you.
The other one we have, David Robertson, who wrote The Power of Little Ideas. He's a Wharton professor for MBA. And I was reading his book and I was thinking, man, everybody should hear about this. So he talks about the power of looking at your core idea and building ancillary services around it to support the core idea. We have is Ann Winblad, who's going to talk about how venture capitalists look at different projects and decide how to invest in them. So I'm very, very excited to have all three of those keynotes available.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. Those are and these are all volunteers. These are all people who are just, I'd like to show up because Scoble is, he's a pretty well-known dude. He's going to bring the rain to your program.
If you are interested in augmented reality and what's happening for the future of augmented reality and you're planning on building around that, you want to see that session.
Yeah, his book, The Fourth Transformation, that's amazing.
Or if you want to catch him in the shower with some Google glasses on, you can also.
Oh, don't even start me on that.
Also, some other guys and gals who have written books on DevOps. Jez Humble and Dave Farley are going to present at the conference. They wrote Continuous Delivery. Gene Kim is going to be at the conference. Nicole Forsgren is going to be at the conference. Jennifer from Chef, who wrote the DevOps handbook not the DevOps handbook. The title's escaping me, and I have it right on my desk at home. But Jennifer Davis, from Chef, wrote a great book on collaboration in DevOps and a lot of other practices. So a lot of the people that have literally written the books on DevOps are going to be at the conference speaking in the different tracks. So. And all part of just sharing their knowledge, because they can they don't want to travel everywhere to every conference and every country, so it just gives them an opportunity to reach a pretty big audience.
Well, Anders, from a CEO's perspective, from where you sit, What's your level of engagement here? Why are you guys participating here?
Well, I'll give you the CTO perspective, and let Steve Brody, who's our CEO, handle the other one. But I mean, the community is really what drives a lot of this stuff. Most of this stuff is grassroots. Especially in the larger organizations and enterprises that we work with as customers. And there's been a really kind of interesting, I think, kind of pivot the last few years. And Gary Groover talks about this a lot in terms of we're finally kind of getting the attention of the leadership in these companies. I mean, I'm talking about the last few years, not just the last 20 minutes. But that's really a big change. From going from this is all grassroots, we want to do this, know you're crazy, that kind of stuff, and to finally now where there are efforts and there are projects and there's now senior leadership involved in giving not just air cover but real support for this. And so I think having it start out as such a grassroots thing, it's always good to hear kind of what the community is thinking about what's next and what some of the problems have been and challenges that have been overcome and mistakes that have been made and all the war stories basically.
Yeah, you think about crowdsourcing and open sourcing, it's such a huge part of how people have gotten into doing Agile and doing DevOps. So giving a platform, a crowdsource sort of open source version of that from a conference perspective, I think is amazing.
And I just want to add one thing around the speakers that you've got, and I want to give props to the other people on this call who are organizing this, not for myself at all, is focus on balance and inclusion in the speaker panels, and looking at things like the money made from any of the t-shirts and the cups sold is going to women who code. I mean, Mark, Derek, do you guys want to touch on that? I think it's been very, very cool to see the effort you've put into having a more inclusive conference as well.
Yeah, I'll let Mark take the lead there, and then I'll chime in.
As far as inclusive, thanks for bringing that up, Andy. It's, we've seen throughout history that there is a lack of women in technology. It's been going down. And what we want to do is make sure that we are inclusive in any efforts that we're doing here. Let me turn my video back on so you can see that. It is one of our main focus. How can we be inclusive? We're the biggest, largest DevOps conference in the world. We have to be inclusive, not just of women, not just in gender, but as far as culture is concerned. Everything that has to do with being part of a global community, I think Derek and I are trying to touch on that and make sure. Derek, I'll turn that over to you.
Yeah, like Mark said, it wasn't only the balance of, we have male and female speakers that are joining the event. We have, a whole wide variety of people on the organizing committee from different backgrounds. But when there was an opportunity to have a platform like this, and like Andy said, we have t-shirts for the conference that are really cool t-shirts, and you can find those easily on the site. But we're not trying to make money off of this conference. We're trying to educate people, and we thought, like, we have these cool t-shirts, why don't we offer them? But part of what we did was we made the t-shirts as cheap as we could get them, so they're $15 online, but all the profits from those go to Women Who Code. And when you're on purchasing a t-shirt like I did this weekend, there's an opportunity to contribute a little more if you want to within that community. So it gives us an opportunity to give back and to make education more accessible, not just through our conference, but through other ways in the community. One of the other things that I'm excited about as a session in the conference, Mandy Whaley over at Cisco gave a great presentation at DevOps Days Austin earlier this year called DadOps. And it struck such a chord with me when I was watching the presentation that, she's up there as a woman presenting at a DevOps conference, And she wasn't talking about DevOps per se. She was really talking about women in technology, but from a perspective that I truly understood it. That I have a daughter who's 6 years old, and Mandy said, look, I know my audience out there, 95% of all of you in this audience are men, but some of you have daughters, or some of you are uncles, right? And some of you are role models out in your community. And there are little girls out there that want to learn something and want to take an opportunity, to learn something. And she talked about all these experiences of her and her dad and how they interacted, and like she wanted a new stereo system, and this great story about her dad said, okay, you want a stereo system? Fine. So he got all the components and he got all the cabling, and he said, there you go. And she's like, what? It's not put together. He's like, exactly. If you're going to learn, figure out how to get all this together. And she said, it's, your opportunity as men in the community to look at your daughters or your nieces or nephews or whatever, and give them learning opportunities. And that message, I was like, Mandy, you have to come and speak at All Day DevOps and help deliver this message, because it's not just, hey, respect women. It's literally like, teach your children well, right? And if they happen to be girls, hey, all the better, right? But it's a topic that we can't ignore, and we wanted to really bring out as part of the conference.
To follow up on that, Derek, I actually had a personal experience happen within this weekend about the idea of teaching somebody young, actually taking somebody under your wing. I had a young friend, 14 years old, who was interested in learning how to program Python. And so I saw that Udemy had a course it was a $200 or $300 course, and they were selling it as $10 for a lost leader. So I called Michael and said, this is a good looking course, go do it. He pinged me a couple days later and said, Mark, I got $3,000 worth of courseware for $30. And so he's laid out his whole curriculum for the next year. And his mom has to shut him down at night. He said, one more slide, Mom. I just have to see one more slide. We can't underestimate the enthusiasm of the next generation that's coming up. So anything that we can do to support that is going to be great.
That hunger for knowledge, that inquisitiveness, that's great. So let me ask you guys, and if you don't have a number, that's fine, but do you have any sort of a goal as far as how much you're looking to be able to give to the charity, or no? And if you don't, that's fine. I don't want to put you on the spot.
Yeah, the one thing that we're going to do, and is in our budget, we haven't told them yet or told anyone yet, but since you asked, we have $1,500 earmarked in our budget to give to Women Who Code. And then anything on top of that comes in through the t-shirt sales. I mean, they're cool t-shirts, but again, we've never done this before, so we didn't know that 13,000 people were going to show up. I would love everyone to order a t-shirt, and we'll ship them worldwide. But as much as we can give, all the better. I will say, just as a transition into that point, and something that we were talking about earlier, the conference is setting up a number of viewing parties this year. And viewing parties are a concept that came to us through, Mark had the idea, and then the community actually came to us and said, hey, we want to do this last year. And we just said, well, why not? Because we usually say yes to anything as we organize this conference. But Capital One came to us last year and said, we have a couple of auditoriums at our offices, and we'd like to open those up and invite the general public, the DevOps community locally, to come and watch with us, right? And so this year we have about 25 viewing parties all lined up already. You can find them on the site under the parties link. But this is, if you live in San Jose or Bellevue, Washington, or Guatemala or Cuba, Paris, Milan, Sydney, Melbourne, a number of other places around the world. There are organizations around the world that are opening up their offices and meetup spaces to watch in person. We had about 10 of these last year, but because we think it's a great idea to learn together, to to pursue those viewing parties and make them visible to anyone that wants to sign up in your local community to go and watch with others in the DevOps community. But as part of that, from the t-shirt idea, one thing that we're doing is we're sending each of these viewing parties, I think 15 t-shirts of the All Day DevOps t-shirts, in a box, and some stickers for All Day DevOps that they can give out while they're there. So it kind of just builds the spirit of the conference and what we're trying to do. So I know that there will be a number of t-shirt sales just through those alone around the world, but it's just part of kind of building the passion around All Day DevOps.
Sam, I want to comment on something that you just put in the chat room as Derek was talking. It says, Mark the idea guy. Whether or not that's true.
It's true.
It's not just ideas. You have to have a team behind you that can execute. And I have to give call out to all the people that help us at the core level. I hesitate to say names because I don't want to forget anybody, but you know who you are. If you're helping us on a day-to-day basis to making this happen, ideas are worth nothing if they're not executed. So thank you sincerely from me and Derek for all the people that are helping make this happen.
And that's a fantastic transition point for, I think, what's our last slide to talk about, which is how do folks register to this, it seems like, fantastic set of information and knowledge and sharing and community. They just go to alldaydevops.com and register. There's no fee, there's no blood test, there's no gender check, there's nothing, right?
Exactly. Alldaydevops.com. You'll see the register button at the top of the page. All we need is your name and email address so that we can email you about the schedule and the URLs that you need to log in and any of those updates, so that you can get a hold of the session. So it's that easy. And I'll just push another reminder that this is an opportunity to educate as many people as possible about All Day DevOps. So when we had other organizations last year that sent 20, 30, 40, 100 people from their DevOps practice to the conference, it really, this is the opportunity where your whole team can attend. And just because the session is live broadcast online, all of the sessions are recorded. So if you're not watching at 3 a.m. Eastern time when we're running sessions, you have the opportunity to go back and see those speakers on the live recordings that are available to everyone that registers. But if you have a team of 20, have everyone register, because there is something across 100 sessions. There's something that everyone can learn, at this conference, and there are multiple sessions I think everyone will find valuable. And yeah, it's free, so it won't cost you anything, but your time to learn from others in the community.
Excellent. That's fantastic. Mark, anything to add to that?
Yeah, just a short little blurb. But Derek came up with this one, and I had to give him credit for it. I just don't have all the ideas. But one of the things Derek said a couple months ago is, let us bring 100 practitioners to your desktop. And that resonated with me. How often can you get speakers to come to your business? I mean, if you're lucky, you might get five to seven good, high quality speakers come to talk to your group each year. In this case, we're going to put 100 of them in front of you on your desktop within a 24-hour period. I don't know any other way to say it.
It's super exciting.
Yeah, it is very exciting. We're super happy to have you guys on the program to talk about it. Huge believers in it. Sorry we didn't get involved earlier. Anders, did you have anything you wanted to share?
I was just going to say it sounds like Woodstock, for DevOps, only with less mud, hopefully.
I love that. We need that on a sticker or a T-shirt.
Acid.
Woodstock for DevOps.
Mark, that was a great idea. That's amazing, Mark. Andy, did you have any thoughts that you wanted to share before we close the program?
No, look, nothing I haven't really already said. It's a great program. It's a great, the conference itself is so enlightening. I learned a whole bunch. I'm going along again this year to learn a whole bunch more. I want to give a lot of props to all the organizers, and there's a lot of people behind the scenes. And there's been a lot of effort to make this the conference you really want it to be. You know, you go to a bunch of conferences and you pick things out and you go, oh, that's not right. Oh, there's not enough of this. And, you know, oh, I wish there were more practitioners. Oh, I wish I could hear more voices. I wish I could hear from different types of people. And this is the conference you want it to be. You know, all these comments, oh, I wish I didn't have to travel. Oh, I hate going to Vegas. All this stuff, right? This is the conference you want it to be.
Yeah,
it's
you can wake up with your own pillow. Whatever you like to eat for food, make that. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, or go to a viewing party and eat other people's food. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, so Derek, I'm going to leave it with you to sort of wrap this up. I want to thank you guys for joining us. This has been really awesome to have you on the program. Well, final thoughts?
Yeah, Sam, Anders, thank you so much for giving us this platform, for inviting us in, for having the conversation, and for all that you guys do in the DevOps community. You know, it's important. You know, it's important when you have platforms like this that can educate everyone, and the consistent delivery that you guys are doing in the community to help educate people that, whether they're related to your business or not, you're in the DevOps community, you're spreading the word. And I think that's how we're all learning. And that's the best way for us to learn as we collaborate out in the community. So a big thank you to you for having us today and allowing us to talk about how we pulled together this dream.
Fantastic. Yeah, our pleasure. And Abigail as well, who's back to Mark's comment. Ideas are not really worth anything unless you can implement them, and she is our key organizer, implementer, executioner. I guess executioner doesn't sound right, but
that sounds about right.
Yeah, you get the idea. That's fantastic. All right, well, thank you everybody for joining. It's been a lot of fun talking with you about All Day DevOps, which is coming up in just about a month. So make sure you register at alldaydevops.com.
Thank you.